What is up, Bama Insider Nation? Welcome into Monday Night Quarterback. Format's going to be a little bit different tonight, guys. You may be used to seeing Mick Gillespie along with myself and Tony Tsoukalis. Mick is on assignment for the next 2 or 3 months, so we're going to change things up a little bit. We have Tony Tsoukalis, staff writer, joining us for the first 15 minutes here. We're going to have Andrew Bone, recruiting expert, coming on for the next 15 minutes to get us to the 6:30 mark. Tony, it has been great getting to cover this team over the last really, year and a half now for Bama Insider, getting to do shows with you. This summer format, I think, is going to be a little bit more fun, a little bit more personal. The storylines are a little bit different. Obviously, this is the time of the year where we really get to focus on what's going on outside of the gridiron. And Tony, to get into it here, this week has really had some cool stories, some great stories if you're an Alabama fan. We'll start with Henry To'oTo'o. We knew that Alabama was on his mind, Ohio State, some other schools as well. This was, a player Alabama was really interested in for this defense. And a defense we knew was going to be really talented coming into 2021, regardless of if Henry To'oTo'o is a part of it or not. But To'oTo'o does decide to transfer to Alabama. That announcement came on Saturday. Your initial thoughts, Tony, on this transfer and what this means for this defense. And guys, please hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Get in the comments. We want to hear from you. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll definitely get to it. Super chats are always appreciated as well. But Tony, huge transfer signing for the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yeah, well, you said it. I mean, like we've been waiting for this one for a while. It seems like it seemed like we all kind of knew that Henry To'oTo'o wanted to come to Alabama, but then there was the talk of will the SEC's interconference transfer rule get in the way? And at the moment, it would still be in the way, but they're set to meet. The SEC is set to meet on that rule next month, and you would think if Henry To'oTo'o is transferring, he probably has a good indication that he'll be able to play right away at Alabama. So that was always his first choice. I know Ohio State was in the mix, but I really think the only reason why he would go to Ohio State in his mind was that he wasn't going to be able to play at Alabama. He's always been a huge Alabama lean. I think there's been documented too that in the past his dad said that they felt they made a mistake by not going to Alabama the first time, and they didn't want to make that mistake twice. So he joins, like you said, a loaded Alabama defensive front. We're going to have a story about that tomorrow on BamaInsider.com. And, man, it is going to be it's one of the best defensive front sevens, in my opinion, in the Nick Saban era. Obviously, there's been some really good ones, but when you look at what Alabama, the options they have in that front seven, both on the defensive line and at linebacker, it's crazy, Trey. They really have two of the best pass rushers in Will Anderson and Chris Allen. And then now you have a really good inside duo of Henry To'oTo'o and Christian Harris. And let's not forget about Jalen Moody either. Henry To'oTo'o is going to have to beat him out as well. So really interesting, and there's a lot of ways you can kind of play it.
It really is. And, it's so crazy to think, Tony, we're having this conversation even, you talk even a year ago right now, and it was like, this offense is going to be amazing again, but this defense is still going to be slacking a little bit. To think about how the confidence has shifted, and, shout out to Pete Golding after catching all the hate, after going through those 2 years of, really hearing everything from the fan base. He is getting huge commits, huge transfers now, like Henry To'oTo'o. And, you talk about this defense, the formations we're going to see this year, Tony. We'll start with the 3-4. How do we expect to see To'oTo'o really worked in? Like you said, there's so much depth here, and really some guys that had incredible springs. Do we see him as an immediate starter? Let's talk about this 3-4 package first here. I think this may be the most favorable to a guy like Henry To'oTo'o.
Yeah, well, when you look at Henry To'oTo'o, he's going to be a guy that you're going to plug in next to Christian Harris. Both of them played the will linebacker position last year, so one of them will have to play that Mike linebacker position, but those are your two inside guys. I mentioned the article, this 3-4 package is kind of archaic. You never really see Alabama run it. They call it the base package, but to be honest with you, Alabama runs most of its stuff out of the nickel, but this is pretty straightforward. You got a guy like a run stuffer like DJ Dale in the middle. You'll put an experienced guy, maybe like LeBron Ray and Justin Aboigbe. Those guys can set the edge, but they can also provide a pass rush. And then you've got, like we said, Will Anderson and Chris Allen. That pass rushing duo at outside linebacker. In this formation, they'd be a little bit off the line. As you'll see when we run through some of these other formations, they're going to be closer to the line. But this is pretty much your standard 3-4 package. There's different guys Alabama can plug in. I mean, look, DeMarco Hellum still has to win that safety role. Jalen Armour-Davis still has to win the open role from Patrick Surtain. But, it's there. This is about what you would expect. And look, like we said, Jalen Moody could also win that role from Henry To'oTo'o. But this is, your base package, your standard 3-4 traditional defense. Maybe you might not see it too often, though.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this is very simple. Like you said, Alabama's going to run this nickel more times than not. And really, to simplify things, guys, we're trying to kind of describe how Henry To'oTo'o is going to be worked into this offense. Because, Tony, I mean, this is a guy that led his team in tackles the last 2 seasons at a Power 5 school. Do we see him make that immediate impact? Obviously, this nickel package is going to be where he's playing the most there. Malachi Moore right behind him. In that star, and DeMarco Hellum's getting worked in there as well. Do we see Henry To'oTo'o make the same kind of impact that he did at Tennessee?
Yeah, this is Nickel Rabbits. So this is when you look at it, you have the Rabbits obviously means Will Anderson and Chris Allen. They're basically serving as defensive ends. This is basically like a 4-2-5 with 2 outside linebackers kind of serving as defensive ends. This is a big speed package, right? So you're going to take Tim Smith, a better pass rusher, and put him in. You're also going to move LeBrian Ray or somebody of that, maybe it's Fidarian Mathis, but you move him to defensive tackle. You're getting more speed on the field. The thing with To'oTo'o and how he's concerned is he actually didn't have a great coverage grade last year. So if you're putting him into a nickel package, you're going to want to see him do a little bit better in the coverage. I think he had a 38 grade from Pro Football Focus. For comparison standpoint, Christian Harris had like a 50 grade. Jalen Moody had a 60 grade. So you're going to want to see Henry To'oTo'o improve that coverage grade. That's the only thing I would be concerned about in this little package right here. That being said, I think, in the nickel, you're still somewhat guarding against the run as well. So he's a guy that can obviously do that. He can also get after the quarterback too if you send him as a blitz up the middle. 10 tackles for a loss shows that, he can contribute. So and then when you're looking at the secondary, it's pretty much standard too. In any kind of nickel package, you're going to have that star position where you see Malachi Moore step in there at that star position, which is kind of a slot corner. I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of maybe this from Alabama next season.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, this is really what Alabama is going to be looking to run for the most part. Like Isaac H is saying here in the comments, that defense looks really, really scary good. And they're just so deep. I mean, that's the thing that we haven't seen these last few years. No depth on defense and so much youth. To'oTo'o brings experience, will bring a new look. Guys, get in the comments. Let us know what you think. Who are they going to work in? When are they going to work them in? This defense has a lot of names they can turn to. Let's look at this last dime package here, the Dime Rabbits. Alabama won't be using this one quite as much, but where will we see To'oTo'o make an impact, if at all?
Well,
obviously, he's probably not going to be able to get worked into this one quite as much.
Yeah, and I don't think you would use him in the Dime Rabbits because you're only using one inside linebacker. And as we said, he struggled in coverage. So you would go with Christian Harris probably. Maybe go with Jalen Moody. If last year's any indication, he had the better of the pass coverage grades. But I think, you probably get Christian Harris in here, former defensive back. He's an athletic guy, can go, boundary to boundary, and can really kind of lock down that middle. I think regardless, you're going to need Henry To'oTo'o to improve his pass coverage. I know Bogart Brand said that, slants have been a weakness for him. That's something that they're going to have to work on, whether it be in the nickel or if he did have to step in with the dime. But here you're definitely going to have, if you're looking at your defensive linemen, you're going to need guys like Tim Smith, Fidarian Mathis. Those are the most athletic defensive linemen that Alabama has. So put them in that. You're going so speed here. So you're putting them at tackle. You're obviously putting guys like Chris Allen, Will Anderson. This is a formation you can put in Brian Branch. I mentioned in the article too, Nick Saban during the A-Day game, he talked about getting Chris Braswell into the game. This might be a situation where maybe you put in a guy like Chris Braswell for a Chris Allen, or you could do that in the nickel package as well. Depending on what you want to do, you can put in a kind of a fresh pass rusher where, a guy like maybe his only job is the pass rush. Maybe from a Chris Braswell standpoint, maybe a Drew Sanders, those guys, they can really come in and affect the passer. So Alabama's got so much they can do. You got to look at Daniel Wright too. He could maybe find his way at safety or in the money. I put Brian Branch there because I'm high on him in that money role. And then you'll see this probably against teams, maybe an Ole Miss, a team that likes to pass a lot, Mississippi State actually, team. So that's what you'll come out with this, where you're just really going against super spread and then the pass.
Guys, go check out Tony's work on the Henry To'oTo'o signing and all of Tony's work, the rest of it at BamaInsider.com. So much great stuff out right now. A little pressed for time, Tony. We got to move it along to the second name we got to talk about tonight, Jameson Williams, the transfer from Ohio State. Really a guy that was used almost as a decoy at times up there with the Buckeyes, a speedster, a wide receiver that Alabama can really work into this offense, though. I think we'll see him on the perimeter more often than not. You had an article on Williams that came out this week as well. Tony, what do you like the most about the transfer from Ohio State?
I think when you look at what Nick Saban wanted in this receiving unit, he wanted speed, and while Alabama has it with guys like Christian Leary, and they're going to be getting it with JoJo Earl, those guys are really inexperienced, and so you can't necessarily rely on them right away. I think when you get Jameson Williams, he's coming from a high-end program. He has a year of college under his belt, and he's a guy that can really open up the offense for the rest of the players. Was he used a little bit as a decoy at Ohio State? Yeah, and I think he's going to have a more involved route. But at the very least, he can still form that decoy route for Alabama as a vertical threat. If you get him running these deep post routes, that opens up some inside routes for John Mechie. Because you have to respect that speed. You can't, if you let Jameson Williams go one-on-one deep, then I'll tell, Bryce Young to just chuck it up and let's see if he can fall under it. Because you got a playmaker in Bryce Young who can also buy time in the pocket and give Jameson Williams some time to get downfield, which doesn't take a long time. He's a burner. So I like that. It could also open up, for Slade Bolden in the slot, or G Hall. There's a lot of guys you can plug in, but having that, elite speed, you've seen that in O'Brien offenses with Brandon Cooks. He's a guy for the Texans. You had him as a guy that could kind of like open up a defense. I think Bill O'Brien can kind of use Jameson Williams in that same kind of mold.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to put it. This is an NFL head coach. That's now your offensive coordinator, and Williams is the kind of guy that would maybe work in an NFL offense with the way that, he runs route and his quickness and everything else. Weird, maybe Devontae Smith comparisons. Do you see that at all?
Well, just so much for like a little bit. He's faster than Devontae Smith, and obviously Devontae Smith can do more with the ball in his hands. But from a standpoint of they're both really scrawny kind of guys that play bigger than their body. I think that's the Devontae Smith comparison comes in with that, where a lot of people look at Jameson Williams and they're like, oh man, this guy is really a skinny kid, especially in high school. And maybe they didn't respect him as much due to his size, but like Devontae, he plays above that size and probably plays a little bit of a chip on his shoulder as well. So he's a guy that can block too. You're not going to get on the field at Ohio State if you can't block. That's the same thing with Alabama. And so, having him there on the perimeter, even though he's a more slender, kind of like Devontae Smith. I mean, look, Devontae Smith could block as well. I think that's where that comparison comes in. But in terms of like, they're not exactly a like for like guy, because obviously Jameson Williams is, faster than Devontae, and Devontae's probably more shiftier and just, look, Devontae can do so much with the ball in his hands, but both talented players as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Devontae Smith is your reigning Heisman winner here. We're not saying Jameson Williams is going to be that guy necessarily, but a very similar build, similar style kind of player. Tony, this team last year had a lot of experience that they're now losing. This has kind of been one of the main narratives of this offseason. How do they make up for that lack of experience, really lack of leadership on both sides of the football? How important are these two transfers, Henry To'oTo'o and Jameson Williams, for the experience side of things?
Yeah, just because they won't have to rely on as much young players at those positions. Henry To'oTo'o is obviously a little bit more experienced than Jameson Williams. And so I think, maybe he can come in. We'll see. he's still going to need to bond, and kind of gel with the team, but he does give them that veteran guy that's done it in the SEC. I think that's another big thing with Henry To'oTo'o is it's not like he's only done it at the Division I level. He's done it in the SEC. He's familiar with some of these offenses he's going to be going against. So that's a big plus. And when you're looking at Jameson Williams, he's a guy that's, Alabama went up against him. So they know the level that, that he brings, and he knows the level that he's going to have to be joining. He gives that, not only that speed, but that guy that's going to pick up he's had a year of college under his belt. And I think that that's going to be really important, especially with how inexperienced this receiving corps is after losing 2 first-rounders in Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle.
Really solid pickup all the way around. 2 huge transfers, high-profile transfers that Alabama gets this week, and Henry To'oTo'o and Jameson Williams as well. Tony, it was short and quick tonight, man. This is a little bit Monday Night Quarterback. Your final thoughts before we bring in our recruiting expert, Andrew Bone.
Yeah, it's just a really exciting time for Alabama. I mean, Nick Saban said the rich will get richer when the transfers get opened up like they are. And so far he's been right, because he's pulled in 2 guys that could really make an instant difference on his team. So I think, both additions are really hit Alabama at a spot where they can really make a difference next season. And it'll be exciting to see, how they shape up. It's kind of neat to be looking at these kind of projections and these things in May. I know we've got a long time until the season, but it will go by faster than you think.
It always does. It always does. The summer flies by. Already May 10th now. Tony, thanks so much for coming on with us tonight. We're going to go 1 man in, 1 man out. We're going to bring on Andrew, our recruiting expert here. Tony, we'll talk to you soon. Andrew, thank you for coming on with us. This is, round 2 of Monday Night Quarterback now. Recruiting expert, but that's not just recruits. That's not just prospects. That's transfers as well. You had the chance to talk to Jameson Williams recently. Talk about that. What did he have to say? How excited is he to get to be a part of this Alabama program?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of different when you start recruiting these transfers. And I had an opportunity to speak to Jameson a few minutes ago, actually. And, he told me just how crazy it was. As soon as his name entered the portal, his phone just started ringing off the hook. He said his phone and text messages just quit working. He just couldn't talk to anybody anymore. Just so many people were calling him nonstop, trying to, gauge his interest, try to feel like, try to get a feel on what he was going to do. But then once he talked to Nick Saban and wide receivers coach Holman Wiggins, he said, really, after that conversation, he really just zoned in on Alabama. That I even asked him, I said, was there a number 2 school? He said, not really. There wasn't a number 2 school at all for him. Once Alabama really reached out to him and, told him that they had a spot for him. Back in the day, a couple years ago, he was strongly considering Alabama. Had made about 3 or 4 trips down to Tuscaloosa and really liked Alabama a lot. And he actually told me, he said him and his dad kind of got into several arguments about where he was going to go to school, where his dad was wanting him to go to Alabama. He was kind of wanting to go to Ohio State. So he ends up going to Ohio State, but I guess his dad ends up winning in the end as he ends up deciding to transfer to Alabama. But, really just asked him what really led him to that decision. And he said he just was unsure and very unclear of what his role was going to be with the team at Ohio State this upcoming season. A deep wide receiver room, a lot of guys returning, couple guys who are projected first rounders next year. So, he was really just kind of looking for a fresh start. Wasn't sure if he was going to be, the number 3 guy, the number 4 guy. And, he really wanted to just go somewhere that he could have a fresh start and, have a chance to be a big time contributor. And, he's an elite athlete. I mean, he's a fast kid, but, he also said, everybody wants to just talk about his speed, but he feels like he's a complete receiver. He's 6'2", about 185 pounds right now, and just ready to get to work. He's training. We'll be in Tuscaloosa here in the next couple weeks. So he's excited. He's excited about, the future. Had a great conversation with Bill O'Brien the day that he announced his transfer. So this is a big get for Alabama. I mean, I think with Nick Saban, that coaching staff, they like to evolve, and this transfer portal, with this thing opening up, be careful what you wish for, because Nick Saban, is going to go after elite talent, and he's going to be able to get it. And obviously they did well this year, getting Henry To'oTo'o, and now also getting Jameson Williams. So 2 big gets. I mean, you kind of consider them 5-star gets because they're going to be instant impact type players. Whether they are they're starting or not, I think that they're certainly going to have an impact. They're going to provide tremendous depth to the team, and they're certainly going to have an opportunity to play a big role in the offensive side and defensive side of the ball.
Certainly. I mean, when you hear this news break, it was really exciting. Both of these players, certainly. And like you're saying, be careful what you wish for here. With some of these rule changes, Jameson Williams can get the chance to play right away. Same with To'oTo'o as well. And, like Bogart Brand saying here in the comments, Bama's reloads. They don't rebuild. They keep reloading. 2 massive transfers. Guys, hit that like button. Get in the comment section while you're in here. Thanks so much for being with us on Monday Night Quarterback. Andrew, want to ask you about the other, 5-star transfer, if you will, Henry To'oTo'o. We've been waiting so long for this news to break. It felt like he was, almost 100% Alabama. We knew other schools were in the mix as well. What was that final, factor that led him to decide to commit to Alabama this past weekend?
Well, I think just the, obviously had a great relationship with the coaching staff. I think when he entered the portal, he knew in his mind that Alabama was where he wanted to go. Obviously, there were some other factors that were involved in terms of, the SEC, still hasn't made a decision on if they're going to allow a one-time exemption transfer for kids to transfer within the conference, and still hasn't been decided yet. But I think that To'oTo'o and Alabama, I think they felt pretty confident that it's going to get passed. And from what I've heard, it's probably going to get passed in early June. At least they're going to make a decision in early June. I think everyone's kind of just keeping their fingers crossed that it is going to get passed. But as of right now, I would be shocked if it doesn't. If you're seeing all these other conferences that are coming out saying that they're definitely going to let kids come in, transfer within the conference, whether that's the Big Ten, the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the SEC, they're not going to be the ones that aren't going to allow it and let all these other schools, in other conferences allowed to do it. So I think it's going to get passed. And I think To'oTo'o, Alabama felt pretty confident that was going to happen. Now, as many people will remember, it came down to, really Alabama and Tennessee and his recruitment. Back a couple of years ago, we all thought he was going to Alabama. It was pretty much a done deal. Last couple of days, things changed. He ends up going to Tennessee instead, which I think surprised a lot of people. Maybe not him, maybe not himself or his family, but definitely surprised a lot of people in the media that he went to Tennessee instead of Alabama. But now he ends up now he's transferring to Alabama. Hopefully, he's going to be able to play this upcoming year, which, like I said, I believe he will be. And I know that there's all these different people. Oh, well, is it going to be Henry? Is it going to be Jalen Moody as a starter? As of right now, I don't think it really matters. You're adding another quality football player to your football team. And I posted this on the Bama Insider board a few days ago. A few years ago, Alabama had an opportunity to win another national championship. LSU won it instead. And a big reason for that was because the linebacker depth. A lot of injuries there. 2 starters out for the year. You had to rely on some freshmen at the position. You got to have depth at every single position to be able to have success, to be able to get through the season, to be able to, navigate that SEC schedule, get to the SEC championship, the playoffs, the national championship game. As long as you continue to have depth at the position, talent, people who've played at the highest level, who've had an impact at the highest level. There's a lot of talent, on Alabama's team, but who's having a tremendous impact? You've got to have impact type players. This is an impact type player. I think Jalen Moody's certainly an impact type player as well. Don't get me wrong, but I think the more you have on your team, the better you're going to be off. You don't want to have 1 or 2 guys in your linebacker core and then say, okay, well, that guy's injured. Let's throw somebody else in there that doesn't have a lot of experience, and hopefully he'll do pretty good, because they got in that situation a couple of years ago. It just didn't happen. So be glad that an elite player is now on your team, and if he doesn't start, then so be it. If he does start, then he's going to have to earn it. So I certainly think that Alabama, Nick Saban, that coaching staff, Pete Golding, they're going to put the right people out there to play. And, obviously they like to rotate guys in and out. So I think this obviously adds a very quality player at a big position of need.
Oh, certainly. And, like you're saying, this depth is so important and experience on this defense as well. We were watching two freshmen try to, tackle Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the rest of that LSU offense, and Bryant Denny. It didn't work. This is going to be a defense that's loaded down, really in the middle there as well, like you're talking about. Let's get to recruiting. We'll talk about these transfers here as these, as the weeks continue. But let's get into this class of 2023 a little bit now. Walter Nolan, Zach Rice, Denver Harris, Terrence Brooks, all these guys have scheduled their official visits to Alabama. We expect to see them at summer camp as well. Which names out of this group get you the most excited? This class is looking to follow up maybe the greatest class in recruiting history. Who do you like out of this group the most here? Who gets you the most excited?
Well, I think, I know you said 2023. We're in 2022. So 2022, we'll talk about some 2023 guys here in a minute, but 2022 and this summer, it's going to be so busy in Tuscaloosa, really all over the country, because on June 1st, recruits for the first time in more than a year, finally going to be able to visit college campuses and spend time with college coaches. They're going to be able to work out on the campus and work with the coaches. They're going to be able to take official visits. They're finally going to do a lot of things that a lot of kids in the 2021 recruiting class weren't able to do. And there's so many kids who have already set up official visits to Alabama in the month of June. A lot of kids overall. I mean, you go to BamaInsider.com right now, there's a list of more than 50 recruits who already confirmed their visit plans with Alabama this summer. So we have that complete list on BamaInsider.com right now. But in terms of official visits, you got some heavy hitters that are coming in town. You're seeing a picture right there, a 5-star defensive lineman, Walter Nolan, the #1 defensive tackle in the country out of Tennessee. This is an elite kid that Alabama, a lot of other schools are heavily involved in, but he visited Alabama for the spring game. He's going to be back in Tuscaloosa on June the 25th through the 27th for his official visit. Now, is not expected to make a decision this summer. He's going to wait a little while, wants to kind of go into the season, go to some games. So a lot of people, I know a lot of Alabama fans are thinking, well, why doesn't he just wait until the season? Well, he wants to get the official visits out of the way, go in during the season, enjoy the games, and go home. Then make that decision probably sometime in December, if I had to guess. But don't worry, Alabama fans. He's certainly going to be back in Tuscaloosa after his official visit. But Walter Nolan, Denver Harris, 5-star cornerback, #2 cornerback in the country, out of Texas, has the top 4: Alabama, LSU, Texas, and Texas A&M. I think Alabama's got a great chance to land him. He's going to be visiting also on that June 25th weekend. A lot of big visitors on June 25th. Now, there's some kids that I'm really anxious to watch in terms of are they going to make decisions in the month of June after their official visits. Shamar James, outside linebacker out of Faith Academy down in Mobile, just came out with the top 2 about a week ago. Alabama and Florida. Going to take that official to Alabama on June the 4th through the 6th. Then going to take that official to Florida on June the 18th through the 20th. Now, would not be surprised if a commitment potentially happened before that trip to Florida. I'm sure Alabama's going to try to work their magic and get him on board before that official visit to Gainesville. But I think he'll probably still take that visit because he has a close relationship with the coaching staff at Florida, and probably wants to pay some respects to them and at least take that visit down there just to give them a good shot just as well as Alabama. So we'll see him in Tuscaloosa in early June. Another big official visitor in early June, Jake Taylor. Not the Jake Taylor from the movie Major League. Jake Taylor, offensive lineman from Las Vegas. Picked up that offer from Alabama. I think it was back in February. Didn't have Alabama in his top 3 at the time. Replaced USC with Alabama. So it's Alabama, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, top 3 for Jake Taylor. I think Alabama's going to have a really good chance to potentially land him. They'd love to build some inroads there at Bishop Gorman High School, one of the top high school football programs, and not only in the area but in the entire country. So Jake Taylor coming in for that June 4th visit. Another big visitor, actually 2 big visitors that are coming in around June the 18th. One's going to be an official, Elijah Pritchett, 6'7", 295-pound offensive tackle out of Georgia, was at Alabama's spring game. He had just recently named a top 8 and says he's going to take his decision into the season. But I think Alabama has a really good chance to land this big offensive lineman. They've got a great relationship with him already. Talks to the staff, almost on an every other day basis. So I'm watching him pretty closely. And another guy that I think a lot of Alabama fans are very excited about, Earl Little Jr., Rivals 100 cornerback, out of American Heritage High School, same high school that produced Pat Surtain, and his father also coaches them. So this is a guy that has Alabama at the top of his list. He's just coming in for an unofficial visit. I think it's going to be June the 17th, but he's going to be spending a couple days at Alabama. And then as of right now, planning on making a decision after his senior season, has an official visit set with Alabama on November the 6th. Same weekend, Alabama hosts LSU. Could wait until then to make a decision, but I would not be surprised in the least bit if he went ahead and made a decision this summer. So, watching all those guys pretty closely in terms of some kids who could make decisions this summer, potentially in the month of June.
Yeah, busy month of June for this program. I'm going to talk about some more of these guys here in a second. Real quick, we got a super chat from 2AM Views. Thanks so much for the super chat. Got a question about JTT. The latest on him. Any word there, Andrew?
Yeah, so the latest with JT Tuilamola is he is going to take official visits in June. I know a lot of people are waiting on him to make that decision and wondering what he's going to do. I don't think he really knows what he's going to do just yet. He just finished up his senior season on the football field. The state of Washington pushed their football season to the spring because of COVID, and so now he's starting to really focus on these official visits that are coming up: Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon. Those are 3 schools who are definitely going to get visits. He's also thinking about taking an official to Washington, thinking about taking a visit to USC. But the 3 schools we're really watching is Alabama, Oregon, and Ohio State. It's got a great relationship with all 3 coaching staffs, really likes Oregon a lot. Mario Cristobal has a great relationship with the Ohio State coaches. But Alabama, Nick Saban, Coach Saban really took control of his recruitment. Him and Pete Golding, Freddie Rose have done a great job recruiting him thus far. But, all we're all kind of waiting on is these official visits that are coming up in June. We don't know official dates yet. He has not announced that just yet. Trust me, we've asked the people close to him, and they keep telling us he hasn't made a decision yet. Now, I do know that a few kids from his area are coming to Tuscaloosa that first week of June. So around June 2nd, June the 4th. Probably not the weekend that Alabama wants JT to come, because that will be his first official visit. They probably want to get him that last official visit, but we'll see if he ends up making it. Just getting him on campus is going to be big. They can win him over regardless if he comes the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth weekend. I don't think that really matters too much, but I think Alabama certainly has a great chance still with him. They've had a pretty good run so far this spring, obviously getting some big pickups over the course of the last week. So we'll see what happens with JT, but we're looking at early June, mid-June for the official visits, and then probably going to decide late June his final decision. So that's what we're kind of all waiting on right now. And thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you to AM Views, and thanks guys for being here. Get in the comments, hitting us with the likes. We really appreciate it. Keeping Bama Insider running. Really an interesting storyline to follow there with JTT. I butcher his last name no matter how many times I practice it. So I'll spare you guys this time around. Arch Manning is a name, Andrew, that really gets a lot of people excited. Don't know why, but him, with LT Overton, some other guys. Peter Woods expected to be at camp this summer as well. Let's talk about these guys a little bit, and who you expect to gain some traction with Alabama.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the underclassmen. We know about all the 2022 guys, and most of these guys who have these committable offers, who Alabama's really targeting in the 2022 class. But what about 2023? There's a lot of talent, a lot of guys coming in, and this is a big opportunity for Alabama to finally have a chance to see these kids, because most of these some of the 2022 guys they've seen before, whether that was in camp a couple years ago, but most of these 2023 guys they haven't seen it all. So getting these guys on campus, working them out, getting them to camp, and at least just visiting with them. Even if Arch Manning comes to Tuscaloosa and decides not to work out, at least getting him on campus and getting him into Coach Saban's office and sitting down with him. Coach Saban with all the rings on his table, that's going to be something that I'm sure he'll be showing off to plenty of recruits this summer. But I think with Arch Manning coming in, obviously that's going to be a big visit. One of the top high school quarterbacks in the country, a 5-star already on Rivals.com, and pretty open-minded. Doesn't have a leader at all, but it's going to take a lot of visits this summer and really enjoy the process. I know he's going to visit Alabama, Georgia, Texas, even SMU. Those are some schools he's already named that he's going to take visits to, and he's going to be in Tuscaloosa on June the 18th. LT Overton, 5-star defensive lineman, one of the top is the top overall player on Rivals.com out of Georgia, and he's got some connections with Alabama. His father was an associate AD at Alabama for a few years, and has been to Tuscaloosa, even after his father left. So he's very familiar with Alabama. Really likes Alabama a lot, and it's going to be visiting in early June. I think it's June the 5th when he's going to be coming in. We're going to see some other top defensive guys that are going to be on campus this summer. A lot of in-state guys. Peter Woods, number one player in the state of Alabama from Thompson High School. He's going to be in Tuscaloosa, defensive lineman, on, I believe, June the 19th for the O-line, D-line camp. Peter Woods, I said Peter Woods. His teammate, Tony Mitchell, is also one of the top overall players in the country, top 20 overall player. And he's going to be in town, defensive back. I think Alabama's going to have a really good chance with both of those guys. 2 linebackers that I know Alabama really likes a lot, and they're high on Alabama as well. Malik Bryant out of IMG Academy, and then and Anthony Hill out of Texas, out of Ryan High School in Denton, Texas. Both of those guys going to be in Tuscaloosa this summer, mid-June. I think Bryant's around the 12th. I think Anthony Hill's a little bit later, maybe June the 26th. So both of those guys, both in the top 20 overall on Rivals.com in the 2023 class. So, that's not the only group of guys that are coming into town. There's so many names. I mean, I really think Alabama fans need to click on our link on the front page of Bama Insider that says summer visits. There's so many names. We have all the visit dates already. There's going to be a lot more that are going to be added. We're going to have a ton of updates throughout the next few weeks leading up to the camps, leading up to the official visits. And obviously during the official visits and camps, we'll have a ton of content that's going to be produced from those events.
Yeah, guys, please go check it all out. Andrew Bone works harder than any recruiting expert in the country. Hit that link on the website. You guys can Google, this, that, whatever, but it's hard to find that info, and he's got it for you right there, organized, ready to go. Andrew, you know who Elijah Brown is. He is committed to the University of Alabama. Let's talk other tight ends, though, around the country. Is there anybody else that this program tries to sign to add along to Brown there as well, or is he going to be the lone tight end in the class?
Yeah, so a few days ago, we saw Holden Stays out of Atlanta announce his decision to Notre Dame. And Holden Stays is a former Penn State commitment. He received an offer from Alabama last year, and Alabama had been in pretty good contact, with him up to his decision. But I still think he probably needed to come into camp, at least spend some time with the coaching staff. And I think Alabama is still interested in taking another tight end in this class. And there's 2 guys that they're heavily recruiting that are both planning on visiting Alabama in June. And one is Oscar Delp, who's the number 1 tight end in the country out of Georgia. Got a chance to see him at the Rivals camp a few weeks ago, and he was outstanding. And he actually won the wide receiver MVP award. Just a very long, kind of lean, 6 foot, about 6'6", 225 pounds, but can absolutely run. I was really impressed with how fast he was, and definitely a big time offensive playmaker. And Alabama's really kind of stepped things up with Delp over the course of the last couple months. Really developing a good relationship with the coaching staff. Now I do believe that Alabama's probably on the outside looking in, but the fact that he's still going to make a visit to Tuscaloosa, anything can change. And then another tight end that they're kind of focused in on is Jaleel Skinner out of Greer High School in South Carolina. Clemson's very high on his list. Florida State also very high on his list. But you had a chance to talk to him a few days ago, and he is planning a June trip to Tuscaloosa. So as of right now, those are really the 2 guys at the tight end position that I'm focused in on, or that Alabama's focused in on, that I'm focused in on in terms of writing about. And I think that Alabama could have a chance with them. Now, they do have a commitment already in Elijah Brown, so that was a big early pickup for them. I think if they can get Jaleel Skinner or Oscar Delp, certainly would take a second tight end in this class. Now, those 2 guys end up going elsewhere. could potentially just end up settling with, or not settling, but just taking one tight end in this class on Elijah Brown and still be a pretty good one at that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, adding depth is important here, but Elijah Brown is an excellent tight end to have committed already. We'll see what they do in that regard. Wrapping up here, Andrew, but before we do that, let's talk about some guys that maybe, are still considering Alabama that did not decide to commit to the capstone. We'll talk Jaden Wayne first year, and maybe some other guys that maybe are still considering Tuscaloosa. Do you think any of these guys will switch their commitments, and maybe make the switch to Alabama eventually, or are those commitments set in stone there?
Yeah, so Jaden Wayne, I know you mentioned him. He's actually, just to kind of clear things up, he's a 2023 defensive lineman that's going to visit Tuscaloosa in June. He has not made a decision yet, but I know I sent you that note earlier. I may have screwed up on sending that. So in terms of guys who've made decisions recently that are still considering taking visits to other programs, Isaiah Bond just recently committed to Florida, committed on Saturday. I think it shocked a lot of people when he made that decision, but I reached out to him, just to say, congrats, but also, are you still going to be taking some visits? He says he's still taking his official visits, planning on visiting Alabama on I believe it's June the 18th. So Isaiah Bond, Florida commitment, still planning on coming into Tuscaloosa this summer. Another wide receiver that I'm interested in, seeing if he's going to make a potential flip is Luther Burden, the number one wide receiver in the country. Is currently committed to Oklahoma, but is friends with new Alabama transfer Jameson Williams, both from St. Louis area. He's going to be coming into Tuscaloosa this summer at some point to visit campus, and he said he hasn't decided yet which date he's going to come in, but he's certainly a guy that has interest in Alabama and wants to check things out. So those are just a few guys that we're going to continue to watch and see kind of what happens in their recruitment moving forward.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Looking at the notes now, you had it perfect. That one's on my end. Jaden Wayne is a prospect, though, I do want to talk about here a little bit. He got an offer this week from Alabama. Still quite a ways away there, like you mentioned, 2023. Alabama making some other offers this week as well. Let's talk about these a little bit. Which ones get you the most excited? Jaden Wayne has not made his commitment yet, but maybe it will be to Alabama here. They won't have to try to pull him away from somewhere else. Out of these offers, what do you like the best?
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Wayne, big time defensive lineman. The class of 2023, it might be one of the deepest classes I've ever seen. I've covered This is my 19th year of covering recruiting, and I don't know if I've seen a defensive line class this deep, especially at defensive end. There's a lot of strong side defensive ends that are heavily recruited. He's the number 13 overall player in the country in that 2023 class from Tacoma, Washington. Alabama trying to recruit the state of Washington a little bit harder these days. So, can they make a potential big impact? Maybe they don't get JT Tuamoloau, but maybe they get Jaden Wayne in that 2023 class. So he's really excited about getting to Tuscaloosa in early June. I had an opportunity to talk to him the other day after he got that offer, and had a great interview on BamaInsider.com about his offer. So he's really excited. So we'll be paying pretty close attention to him. A lot of these 2023 guys still need to come to camp. You still got to show up on campus. These offers, they like you. They like your film. They think you're going to be an elite player, but they still want to see you on campus. They still want to work you out, see if you can kind of go through the grind. And, can you potentially be a football player at the University of Alabama in the next couple of years? So they want to work you out and kind of go from there. But he's certainly a guy that I think Alabama, is going to be very high on, and I think he's going to be high on Alabama. Reuben Bain, another defensive end who was offered by Alabama last week out of South Florida, Miami Central. He was a outstanding player this past season, had 13 sacks in only 6 games. So he's certainly somebody that we're watching pretty closely. And then Yvonne Pierre out of Eufaula High School, also in that 2023 class, defensive end. So many defensive ends, I'm telling you. It's an unbelievable class. So a lot of these guys, still need to come to camp, work out, but they're on a good track right now getting these offers early on in their recruitment.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess edge rushing is just, being taught all over the place nowadays. A lot of defensive ends that we get to talk about. Really just so much talent in this class of 2023, 2022 as well. It's going to be hard to follow up that 2021 class, but Alabama is off to a really good start there in both of those. Andrew, before we get out of here, I want to hear your final thoughts on this past week as a whole. Some really big news for Alabama. Before we do that, guys, hit that like button one more time for us. Get in the comments anything you guys want to talk about before we get out of here tonight. Andrew, Toto is coming to Alabama. Jameson Williams as well. Really a big week for Alabama in the transfer department, especially.
Yeah, it was. I mean, this was an exciting week. Obviously no commitments in the 2022 or 2023 recruiting class, but it seemed like Alabama got a couple 5-stars in these guys on board. So obviously it was pretty exciting. I think with all the kids announcing their visit plans, their top 5s. That's got to be exciting. We're just kind of getting ready for the summer, and things are starting to really kick up a notch, and really exciting time over at BamaInsider.com. So if you're not a subscriber, jump on the site, check us out, and I think all you guys will really enjoy it.
No doubt about it, guys. Please go subscribe. Check out the rest of the content on the website. There's so much out right now. It's not football season, but there's still a lot of headlines to talk about, a lot to cover. Check out the YouTube page as well. We're breaking down these transfers, some signings, really all over the field. We're talking about Bryce Young, Paul Tyson, Bill O'Brien, all of it. You can find it at BamaInsider.com and on the Bama Insider YouTube page as well. This has been Monday Night Quarterback. I'm Trey Hannity. That is Andrew Bone. We had Tony Tsoukalis earlier. Thank you all so much for watching us. We'll be back next Monday night to do it all over again. But before then, guys, go check out the rest of our content. And thank you so much for hitting that like button and keeping Bama Insider as the leader in Alabama Crimson Tide coverage. Until next week, everybody, roll Tide. Have a good one.